Hello and welcome. Have you ever wondered why any discussion about faith or a higher power can get so divisive? It often just boils down to a fundamental misunderstanding. So today, we're going to tap into some wisdom from the Gita and explore 5 common ways we might, without even knowing it, be limiting our understanding of the divine. And, more importantly, how just a small shift in perspective can open up a path to a much more joyful life. So let's start with this really powerful paradox. We're always taught, don't judge what you don't know, right? But this quote suggests that when it comes to the divine, that's exactly what we often do. I mean, how can you insult or mischaracterize something you don't even fully understand? This question really gets to the very heart of a deep spiritual challenge. So why is this concept so tough to wrap our heads around? Well, according to the Gita, the difficulty, and really the source of all the misunderstanding, comes from a fundamental duality. You see, the divine has 2 completely distinct natures, and the problem is, we usually only see one side of the coin, which means we're only getting half the picture.
Okay, so let's break this duality down. On one side, you have what's called the lower nature, or Maya. This is everything we can see, touch, and experience, the tangible world, the creation itself. But then, on the other side, there's the higher nature, or Brahman. That's the pure, unseen consciousness, the creator behind everything. The problem starts when we get so caught up in the creation, in Maya, that we become totally ignorant of the creator. And this one single mistake is what leads to the 5 forms of ignorance we're about to talk about.
This brings us right to these 5 faces of ignorance. Think of them as 5 specific ways our incomplete understanding of that dual nature causes us to completely misinterpret the very idea of the divine.
So here they are: the non-believer, the blind believer, the strictly religious person, the fundamentalist, and the superstitious. Each one represents a different way of kind of missing the full picture, and we're going to start with the most basic one.
First up, the non-believer. This is the person who is fully experiencing the world, the lower nature, but just doesn't see anything beyond it.
So their specific insult, their oversight, is seeing all the beauty and the incredible complexity of creation, but just assuming it all happened by random chance. They're experiencing the effects, this world of Maya all around them, but they don't see any cause or creator behind it all.
It's really like sitting down to an amazing, delicious meal, and then completely denying that a cook ever existed. The oversight is a total lack of recognition for the source, even when you're enjoying the results.
Okay, now for our second type, which is a step beyond the non-believer. This is the blind believer. This person actually acknowledges a creator, but their belief is, it's conditional, and it's pretty one-sided.
You see, the problem here is that the relationship with the divine becomes totally transactional. It's like, hey, you did something for me, so great, I'll praise you. But you didn't, well then I'm going to blame you. This kind of thinking completely misses the bigger picture, doesn't it? It reduces the divine function to something like a cosmic vending machine.
And that leads us to our third type, which might actually surprise you a bit: the religious person. Now, this isn't a critique of religion itself, not at all. It's about a specific, kind of limited way of thinking that can sometimes pop up within it.
So here's the crucial point. If the divine is described as omnipresent and infinite, the consciousness behind all forms, then the mistake is to take that limitless, boundless concept and insist that it can only fit into one single box, with one name and one form. It's basically denying the sheer vastness of that higher nature.
Now let's see how this builds to our 4th type, the fundamentalist. This one takes that last point and just pushes it a step further. It moves from limiting the divine for yourself to actively denying it for other people.
Right here is where the ignorance becomes divisive. It's one thing to say, my path is the right one for me. But it's something else entirely to say, my path is the only one, period. This totally misunderstands the idea of an all-encompassing divine because it rejects the possibility that it could show up in ways that are different from one's own beliefs.
And finally, we arrive at our 5th face of ignorance, which brings the focus back to our own personal responsibility: the superstitious person. This person believes in a divine power, for sure, but they misunderstand the universal law of cause and effect.
This is really all about accountability. These folks tend to misattribute the consequences of their own actions to some outside divine will. They're basically outsourcing responsibility for their own lives, blaming a higher power for outcomes that they themselves created.
Think about it like this. An accountant doesn't decide how much you get paid, they just calculate it based on your actions, how much you worked.
So blaming the accountant for a smaller paycheck it makes no sense, right? In the same way, blaming God for the results of our own choices comes from a really deep misunderstanding of how action and result actually work.
So, we've looked at these 5 different faces of ignorance. But what's the one thing, the single root cause behind all of them? Well, it all comes down to a fundamental confusion about what kind of knowledge is actually valuable in life. Our society puts a huge emphasis on worldly knowledge. Things like physics, finance, engineering. And look, it's absolutely essential for survival, and it raises our standard of living, no doubt. But true knowledge, the knowledge of these deeper principles, well, it has a completely different purpose, to lead us to genuine, lasting happiness, to joyful living.
And this brings us to a really provocative question, doesn't it? We spend our entire lives gathering all this worldly knowledge to get ahead. But what if beyond a certain point, that very same pursuit is the thing that's actually preventing us from finding the peace and joy that we're all ultimately looking for?
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem pretty clearly. But what's the solution? Well, the good news is there is a clear path forward, a way to correct our course and really start moving toward that goal of joyful living.
The path, it turns out, begins with a really simple course correction, just acknowledging the Creator, not only the creation. From that recognition, we can start to live in harmony with universal principles, what's known as Dharma. And this naturally leads us to seek out deeper wisdom. And finally, to that profound realization that the spiritual path, not the material one, is the true road to a joyful life.
And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. We can chase success, we can chase wealth, we can chase status our entire lives. But until we make this one fundamental shift in our perspective, from seeing only the world to seeing the force behind it, all of our efforts to find happiness through material things they'll always fall short. We'll just keep searching in the wrong place.
So, I'll leave you with this one final thought to really ponder. Just take an honest look at your own pursuits, your own priorities. Are you searching for happiness in the right direction? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.